What is up, y'all? Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. We, of course, are The Alternates. I am your host, Brian Cullen, and with me, as always, is everyone's favorite double dipper, Clayton Stevens. Clayton, we are still remote. We will be back to the studio shortly. You just got back from tour. I hope everything's going well with you. Good to see you.
Good. Great to see you.
Before we jump in, because we have a lot to cover today. It's been a couple weeks since our last episode while Clayton was out in Europe. We want to ask you all to subscribe to the show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and like the video if you're catching us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. If you're listening to us as a podcast, go ahead and drop a rating and review. And most importantly, share the show. All of that goes a very long way in helping us out and helping people just like you find the show. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email your comments and questions to thealternatehoop@gmail.com and go ahead and give us a follow on TikTok at The Alternates NBA. Clayton, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great, man. It was cool to be back over. I was in the UK for a little bit, mainland for a little bit. Pretty short trip. I was over there for about 10 days. Got to play a big headlining set at the Outbreak Festival, which was kind of insane. It was amazing. 6,000 people, no barrier, like
wow,
truly chaotic. Tons of American bands, like tons of people I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of overwhelming and amazing to see all these people that I hadn't seen in a bunch of years because of obvious reasons. All these festivals kind of brought so many people together. Even, Touche has been going over to Europe for about 13 years now, something like that, 12, 13 years. We've had the same tour manager and driver basically the entire time. We've been touring together for 11 years. This is the longest I've ever gone without seeing him in that time. Wow. So it was like really good to see him and see so many people and catch up with people and all that stuff. So it was a great experience. I'm happy to be back though. And I was doing my best to keep up with the NBA. I was watching the draft on my phone, playing Wi-Fi like a true sicko.
Did it actually work? I've never had Wi-Fi in a plane that like actually worked.
It worked enough.
Okay.
So between watching it and then obviously watching on Twitter, because, in the end, like the draft announcements themselves come, 3, 4, 5 minutes after you read them on Twitter anyways. So mostly I was just refreshing Twitter and keeping, ESPN open on my phone, and it would kind of go in and out at times, but I was able to interact with people and see all the latest news going on. And of course, after that, Woj bombs and Shams bombs and Mark Stein droppings and
that's Stein droppings sounds
Stein
a little
droppings,
weird.
You like that? All those. I was keeping up with all the shits. So no, it was cool, and yeah, I'm happy to be back talking NBA with my dog Brian. And speaking of that dude, how are you? I'm not gonna let that go by. How are you?
I'm doing good. Trying to stay busy right now. Got a big weekend coming up. Got my birthday this weekend, so I never know what to do. Like, my partner has literally asked me, where do you want to go like for dinner, or what do you want to do for dinner your birthday? And it has been days since that question was posed to me, and I still don't have an answer. I'm terrible at this. I'm so bad at picking anything for myself to do.
I mean, the 21st birthday is so big.
Yeah, especially the 7th time I've had it. But no, I'm having a good time trying to keep up with everything going on in the NBA world, because I think you've said it before. Like, this is the real NBA. Like, this is the most exciting time. This off season has not disappointed so far. I'll say that much. I was watching the draft at home, and I'll be honest, I haven't caught too much from, the summer league games or anything like that. I've been watching some WNBA. Anybody who is interested in getting into the WNBA, get into it now. Go watch a Liberty game. Because,
Sabrina.
Oh my God.
Dude.
31-point triple-double yesterday. Unreal.
Ridiculous, dude. And that game, I mean, Aces versus Liberty, star power all over the floor. Just insane. And like Kelsey Plum versus Sabrina is just like, it's much watch TV. It's absolutely incredible.
And to drop that on Las Vegas's defense is unreal. Unreal.
No, Sabrina's special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're not already into it, get into it. If you're a basketball fan, go watch the W. It is so much fun. But yeah, no, I've been enjoying it. It's heating up, which means I'm getting redder. I literally stepped outside for like 15 minutes to have a conversation with someone a couple days ago, and I'm so sunburned just from that conversation. So this is the painful time of year for me, but let's get into it. Let's jump in. We've got a few things to break down here. We're keeping it loosey-goosey. It's not as structured as our normal shows, the off season. It's summertime. There are no rules, and that's how we're going to live our lives right now. Yeah. School's out. So the structure's out the window, but there's a few topics regarding the off season that I feel like we need to get to. Let's start with free agency. That started technically, on the 30th?
Right. We hear about these deals so early that it really is comedic. But yeah, I think you're right. The 30th, and then
the 30th was when meetings were officially allowed to happen, and then signings could actually happen starting the 6th, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So there's been a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to sit here and break down every single free agent that has signed. So I think the way we do this is we just do a little love-hate. We pick a team that has made some moves in terms of free agency, brought some new faces in, and we'll pick one of each. So let's start with love. I always think we should start a little positive with it.
I like that.
I'll kick us off here. I'll kick us off with my team free agency love. It's the Portland Trailblazers. I think during the regular season, there was towards, they traded McCollum, and there was kind of like this, okay, where are they going? What are they going to do? They didn't get these, super high draft pick that they wanted. And so it was kind of a little uncertain, but they've made some moves that I am a big fan of. Part of it is keeping kind of their core together. So clearly they want to keep Anthony Simons. They love him. They gave him an extension. So the backcourt is going to be Dame and Simons, right? Like that is the backcourt. They've committed to that. They brought back Nurkic. It's money. I don't love it. But when you look at the landscape, they were not going to get better than Nurkic. There was nobody out there that was better than what he is. And that's not to say that Nurkic is bad, because I don't think he is. I think Nurkic is good. I really like Nurkic. So bringing him back is huge. They brought back Drew Eubanks, so they have another big off the bench, which shores up some depth for them. And then the big one for me, they were able to sign Gary Payton II away from the Golden State Warriors, fresh off of winning a championship. I love this because when you look at a backcourt of Anthony Simons and Damian Lillard, the biggest question is, where is your defense, right? Yep. Those guys are both incredible scorers, but are not big defenders. And you and I talked about in the finals how important Gary Payton was defensively for the Warriors and what he brought, and how him entering a game even off the bench could completely shift the momentum of a game because of how physical and active he is defensively. And I love that they went and got him that. I love that they shored up some defense, and I love it for Gary Payton too. He was undrafted, and now he's getting, a real contract. I don't want to say life-changing, because his father is a Hall of Famer NBA player. Right, so I think he was covered no matter what. But for him to go undrafted, win a championship, and then get a real contract, I love it. It's so good. And I kind of love that the Blazers are answering some of their needs and starting to shape, give us an idea of like, okay, this is what they're going to do. They're making some moves here. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that's really interesting. I like all those moves as well. Like you said, yeah, the Nurkic number, whatever. I mean, the guy's a good center in the NBA, right? Like sometimes you just got to pay for what you got to pay for. Anytime you're paying someone that is a starting caliber player, I like it. Really, like you almost can't overpay for someone who, unless it's way out of whack, which this deal isn't. The Gary Payton deal is phenomenal. Obviously, we're going to get to, they made some other deals that were also defensive minded.
Yeah.
So a lot of great stuff from the Blazers here. And then, an interesting draft choice as well. So lots of stuff swirling around the Blazers. A very interesting offseason for them. I think that's
Nurkic needs that money to replace some phones, I feel like. Maybe that was built into the contract.
I like that. Yeah, no. Very interesting offseason for them. That's cool. All right. So for my love, I surprised myself because I had to look through and I was thinking, and there's a few teams that I like what they did for sure. But one actually stood out to me that I really shocked myself with, and that's the Philadelphia 76ers.
Wow. Okay.
Now, we're hearing that they're going to be getting James Harden for less than the max on a 3-year deal. Okay, that's a win. That's a huge win, because what did I talk about all season? My worry with James Harden was this 5-year super max stupid extension that just felt inevitable. And somehow Daryl Morey has convinced his buddy James to take a team-friendly deal. And not only is he taking a team-friendly deal, he's running the band back together. He poaches Daniel House and PJ Tucker to come play for the Philadelphia 76ers, shore them up in all the ways they need, more guys who can defend, more guys who can shoot threes. And to me, it just opens up more options. Yeah. Now, is trading Tobias Harris as detrimental as it seemed like it could be? I don't think it is. Right now, you can trade him for other pieces that maybe you think fit, or you keep him because Tobias is a good player. As we've discussed on the show, he's very underrated. So I just love what Philadelphia's done from like a playoff standpoint. Yeah. They're going to be better in the regular season, and from a playoff standpoint, they are definitely better than they were a year ago. And getting James to sign this deal and seeming like he's bought into the team, that was the biggest question that they had going into this offseason. So I'm really, really impressed with what Philadelphia's done. And they've kept it really under the radar and super low key. And Philadelphia, they need an offseason like this, because every year we're talking about drama in Philly, someone's Twitter account is getting hacked, or someone's not playing, or something's happening in Philadelphia. There's always strangeness. And for once, it feels like Daryl Morey has this team just relaxed. We're bringing good players in. We have a system that we believe in. A nice offseason for Philadelphia, I think.
Daryl Morey might be a wizard. For him to be able to get Daniel House, I wish that I could have been part of that conversation of like, hey, I know Harden may or may not have gotten you kicked out of the bubble. I know that there was some questionable stuff there, and you took one for the team. Why don't you come back? I promise it won't happen again.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and they pried away PJ Tucker from a division rival in Miami. I mean, not only do you get him on your team at a decent deal, I think, you pry him away from one of your biggest rivals. So just awesome work by Philadelphia, honestly. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, time to pick a hate. I started us with love. I'll start us with hate. I got the Brooklyn Nets. I hate what they're doing right now. I hate what they're doing. So we got to talk about it. There's a lot. It's so funny. The like Harden stuff was already done, but there is no separating the Brooklyn Nets from controversy and drama. Yes. So it all started with Kyrie saying he wanted out. He was going to go somewhere else. It was quite, teams might have been interested. Maybe they weren't, all this back and forth. And then he signs his extension, right? Or he picks up,
his option, right?
He picks up his option. Cause I think that he realized that he was going to make significantly less money if he went somewhere else, if he opted out.
Yeah, 30 million less. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that happens and it's like, oh, okay. Seems like that's done with. And then like minutes later, it comes out that Kevin Durant has requested a trade out of Brooklyn. Who knows where that's going to go? There's a lot of uncertainty. The asking price, that's been thrown out there for Kevin Durant is one that I don't think any team can really hit. It's a huge asking price, especially because you think about all the picks that they gave up to get James Harden. They are really looking to recoup that, and they don't necessarily want to rebuild. So they want to stay competitive while getting their draft assets back. And I just don't know if anybody has a package that'll make that happen, but who knows? And who knows where this is going to go? Is Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving going to be in a Nets jersey when the season starts? I have no idea. And despite that, they are signing free agents, which is why I hate it. They bring back Nick Claxton. They bring back Patty Mills. They lose Bruce Brown, which I don't like. I think that hurts them big time. Yeah. I just
they re-signed Kessler Edwards.
Yeah, like what are you doing? You're like, it's them just going through free agency and this whole kind of like bring it back. And we're not even talking about the amount of like vet minimums that are unrestricted, like LaMarcus Aldridge. You've got
Millsap. Blake Griffin,
all these guys who they haven't made any deals with, but they're still kind of moving forward as if everything. It just reminds me of the dog sitting, like the meme of the dog sitting in the room on fire saying, this is fine. Yeah. That's what it feels like, them just being like, yeah, we're going to, pretend like that's not happening and sign everything as if we're running it back. So it's so bizarre. I don't know what they're doing. And part of it's biased. I'm sick of Brooklyn. Like, just play some basketball. I'm tired of the Brooklyn conversation having nothing to do with what happened on a court, Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. And we're not even going to get to it because it matters so little, but I absolutely hated the trade for Royce O'Neal, just like giving up a first round pick for the worst 3-and-D guy in the NBA, maybe. I'm with you. I don't really understand what they're doing. I mean, I think maybe they're kind of saying, look, yes, this is all out there, but I think those guys are just going to stay.
Look, Brooklyn has all the leverage in both of those situations, especially with Kevin Durant. You can ask out, you can ask for certain teams, but if we're not getting what we want, we have you under contract for 4 years.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Yeah, they're in a very strange situation right now where they're sort of at war with their best players while just trying to maintain their pretty mediocre roster.
And Ben Simmons in the meantime is like, what the fuck is happening right now?
The biggest question of them all. Always questions with Brooklyn. Okay. So, all right. So for me, the one that I really disliked, I got to go with the Dallas Mavericks. And obviously, number one, first reason why the guy I'm so freaking high on, Jalen Brunson, walks out the door. I understand that the Knicks overpaid for him. It's a lot of money for Jalen Brunson. I'm super high on the guy, but he's a small guard. It's just the reality of the NBA is at his position, at his size, he's just not able to be that dominant of a player. But letting him walk out the door for nothing, not being able to figure out a way to get something in return, figure out something, just letting him walk out the door, I just think that's really tough. And then it was like, well, hold on, no, don't worry. Goran Dragic is coming. Don't worry about it. Goran's coming. No, he's not. He went to the freaking Bulls for nothing too.
Yeah.
So all this Dragic nonsense that's been going on for 3 years never came true. He's never come. They have no one to back up Luka now. And
Dallas
then
was just banking on, it's like a white European dude. That's our bread and butter. just stamp,
yeah, they're
seal
friends.
it.
Don't worry, he's gonna come. Like, no, he's not coming. He's not coming. Oh no, don't worry, we're gonna sign Frank Ntilikina. Uh-oh. I hate that re-signing. I mean, I hate to, I'm not rooting for Frank Ntilikina's downfall or anything, but he just has not proven to be an effective NBA player at this point, especially if you're counting on him to be like a lead guard type.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing he can do is defend, but we know the Mavericks need scoring. They need someone who can put the ball in the hoop when Luke is not on the floor. And then they kind of overpaid for JaVale McGee. It just like, they just got worse. Yeah. That's just kind of the end result of their offseason so far is no one big came in. They weren't able to get in on the Zach LaVine sweepstakes. They weren't able to get in on any of that stuff. Their second best player walks out the door, and they're kind of just left with bad contracts and, a Luka-led team who they're still going to be good. I'm not out on the Mavericks. I think they're going to win a ton of games next season, but I think every Mavs fan would say this is a really disappointing free agency period for them.
Does the return of Tim Hardaway Jr. next season do anything for you?
It does, but it's a huge question mark. Like I really like him coming back, but again, another guy who doesn't really handle the ball, right? Like I love him spotting up and defending and doing all the little things. They have plenty of those guys on the team, but what Jalen Brunson brought is just like, so it's seemingly they haven't replaced it with anything. So that's the biggest issue to me. And then JaVale, whatever, it's just, Yeah. That's just how I feel about their entire offseason. It's just,
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Okay. Now let's get into the trades. That was free agency. There's been a bunch of movement in trades.
Yes.
So at the trade deadline during the regular season, we did a little winners and posers of the trade deadline. There's been so much movement here that I've kind of highlighted a handful of them. And as we go through, we'll decide if there's a winner, a poser, or if we're just kind of neutral on the deal altogether. So We're going to start. The Sacramento Kings acquired Kevin Huerter in a trade with the Atlanta Hawks. They gave up Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, and a first-round pick to get Kevin Huerter. Is there a winner or poser in this trade at all for you?
I have the Kings as a huge winner in this one. Huge winner. I am so high on Kevin Huerter. We've seen every time. I don't understand what Atlanta did with Kevin Huerter's career. Like they would just bench him, go away from him, and then all of a sudden when games started to matter, they would put him in. He always came through. He was a great playoff performer. I just think there's so much left to see with Kevin Huerter that the Hawks just kind of mishandled his career from the jump. And the return, I just think it's bad. I just don't think they got a lot for him. They basically traded him for scraps. Obviously they made other moves that they're happy with, and I get that, but to just sort of fumble the bag on Kevin Huerter here, I find it really disappointing from Atlanta's side.
Okay, I get that. I like the addition of Huerter for the Kings. They lost Dante DiVincenzo, who signed to the Warriors, and so in true Sacramento fashion, Dante went to the Warriors and they were like, we need to get another white redheaded guy on the team because the Warriors have one and we need one. And so, no, I like it. I think it's good for Kevin Huerter. It'll be interesting. I'm kind of neutral on the Hawks side of it. I'm with you. Kevin Huerter is good, but getting a first, totally cool with that, especially with how everything historically goes with Sacramento. Could be a pretty valuable first.
Yeah, you never know.
In Justin Holiday, okay, whatever. Mo Harkless, I like that it's a little defense, but the Hawks are going to come back up, and so I'm going to give my final opinion on that when we get to that.
So you more neutral on this trade, you think?
A little more neutral at this point.
Okay.
So the next one, this is a big one. The Wolves and the Jazz made a trade. The Wolves got Rudy Gobert, and the Jazz got Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Balmero, Walker Kessler, a first round 2023 pick, unprotected, a first round 2025 unprotected first round pick swap in 2026, an unprotected 2027 first round pick, and a protected 2029 first round pick. So basically,
Oh, is that it?
Basically, the Wolves gave up 5 first round picks and a handful of good players for Rudy Gobert. I'm going to start with this one, and I'm sorry, I got to call the Wolves posers here. I hate this for the Wolves. Look, Gobert, multiple time Defensive Player of the Year award winner. I get that. All-star. He's great defensively. But we have seen time and time again him get played off the floor in the playoffs. It was one of the biggest issues for the Jazz. And this is we're going all in, to make a huge step. Great, man. In the regular season, that's cool for the Wolves, but you gave up so much for a guy that has 1,000 question marks going into the postseason, which is what you are really trying to do, is get to the playoffs and get better in the playoffs. And I don't know if this does that. Obviously I have my own bias with Patrick Beverley, but I however you feel about him, I don't think you can really argue what he did culturally for that team in their locker room, the way he was able to bring guys together. Malik Beasley, he's okay. He's a guy that I think is serviceable and good. They lose a lot of depth here. I think it's a huge risk that you're immediately making this huge swing and saying, yeah, Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns work well together. That's, I think, could work, could look great, could not. And then it's a terrible move. And Rudy Gobert is 30 years old. I'm sorry, but 7-footers don't age that well. They usually hit the end of their prime, and it's a steep clip drop off for most. I can't even think of too many, big men that have aged gracefully past their 30, past 30, 32 maybe. So I just don't love it for the Wolves. I think that there were other ways that they could have gotten better without just leveraging their entire future. It just feels like such a big package for Rudy Gobert.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with you here, but I'm going to play a little devil's advocate on this. Only because I think there's a bit of an incomplete here. Because look, to get a player of Rudy Gobert's salary, you have to give up a lot. Just the reality of matching the salary to make this trade work. Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, Jared Vanderbilt, Balmero, who we don't even really know much about yet. And then Kessler, whatever, we'll see. That's just what it takes. It takes that. The picks are tough. I can't lie about that. That part really makes my gut nervous, honestly, because the problem I have with that part of it is Anthony Edwards is like 20 years old. It's not like he's 24, coming up on that second contract. Like, that's the time I think when you go all in on this type of trade. But what they gave up in those players, it hurts their depth, but I don't think they kept, in my opinion, the most important young player outside of obviously Cat and, stuff like that. In Jaden McDaniels, who, to me has a really high upside. It kind of moves him up positionally to the 3, which makes a lot of sense to me. And I kind of like their starting 5, honestly, of, D'Lo, Anthony Edwards at the 2, Jaden at the 3, Cat and Gobert. Like, that's a really good starting 5. I think that has a chance to be really, really, really good in the regular season and win a ton of games. It's just sort of an incomplete for me. I want to see where this goes. I want to see what the Jazz do with this because, acquiring draft assets, cool, but like, what are you going to do with it? And then are they going to trade Pat Bev and Malik Beasley now? Because they don't really seem to fit into their current team. I mean, maybe. I mean, Pat Bev and Donovan Mitchell is kind of an interesting backcourt pairing. Culturally, a very odd fit for Patrick Beverley to be in Utah. Same with Malik Beasley. Just interesting from that perspective. I didn't like it, but I do think the Wolves have a chance to be really good. I will say that. And Tim Conley, their new GM, he's obviously making a big splash here right away. And I have been, I would say, critical of things that the Nuggets did at times. And then it sort of worked out in a way that I didn't expect. So I'm willing to give him a little bit of leash here. Like maybe he sees something that we don't see. Cat moving up to the 4. I actually kind of like it. Defensively, especially. I think it could be really good for him, but I don't know why you wouldn't just go get like a Clint Capella, like that's, it's like, I like the idea, but just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. We got a couple more to get through here.
Yeah. Sorry. That one's just,
they're wild. That's a wild one.
Yeah.
So the Blazers and the Pistons made a move here. Mm-hmm. The Blazers get Jeremy Grant and Ismail Kamagati. I have no idea who this guy is.
Draft and stash guy.
Yeah, no clue. The Pistons get Gabriel Procida. I'm assuming is another. No idea.
They're swapping stash guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the 2025 first round pick from the Bucks, and then 2 seconds from the Blazers, which is 2025 and 2026. So the Pistons basically get some draft assets, and the Blazers get Jeremy Grant. Where are you at with this one? Winners, posers, neutral? Where are we at?
I'm kind of a double winner on this one.
Okay.
Now, I was especially a double winner right when it happened, because I felt like, hold on now, the Pistons really freed up a ton of space here, and they could maybe sign DeAndre Ayton to a big number, right? They could offer him a max at the point when they did this trade. Since then, they have made some more deals. They signed Bagley to a big deal, kind of taking them out of the Ayton sweepstakes, to be honest. But I think it was overrated what people were going to get for Jeremy Grant. They got what they needed in return. And I think that flexibility for a team that's this young in their stage of this rebuild, around Cade, it just makes sense to me. I actually don't think this was a terrible return for him. And the flexibility that it provides them moving forward. I love it from the Blazers' perspective. Jeremy Grant is just an awesome fit around everything that they've been doing so far. I think me and a lot of NBA fans are higher on Jeremy Grant than seemingly teams are. And I think that that's where the confusion comes in, right? Fans think oh, this guy's 25 point per game guy, and he was great on the Nuggets. And I think there's sort of a misconception among NBA teams that he isn't going to be willing to play a somewhere in between role of the two, because I don't think the Nuggets version of him is the best version of him, and I don't think the Pistons version is the best version of him, but I think somewhere in the middle is the best version of him. And so I think they're going to be able to get that out of him, because at times he can have the ball in his hands. And I really like him next to Simons specifically. I think they're a really cool pairing. So I kind of like it for both teams. The Pistons a little bit let me down with what they did afterwards, but it's so early in their whole thing that I'm okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are still a rebuilding team, so getting draft assets is great. And then, I mean, this goes back to my love and free agency. Is I love this pairing with the Blazers. It's just another step where they made a move to put things together, and I like what they're trying to do. It's to be seen what it looks like on the court, but on paper, I love adding Jeremy Grant and Gary Payton II to that Blazers team. I think it's really fun. I think it makes them better defensively. It gives them some more offensive options. I'm all in on it. I think it's super fun. Next one here, we've got the Nuggets and the Wizards in a trade. So the Nuggets receive KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Ish Smith, who I think when this happened, Ish Smith now becomes the record holder for player to play for the most franchises in NBA history.
We love this. That's a great one. That's awesome.
And then the Wizards receive Monty Morris and Will Barton. This one is interesting to me. I have the Wizards as a winner here, and I'm kind of neutral with the Nuggets. I don't hate it for the Nuggets.
Okay.
I think that, clearly it was a money thing, trying to save some money for the team and ducking some, tax issues and stuff like that. But KCP, he's proven that he can be a rotation guy in the playoffs, that he can earn his playoff minutes. Ish Smith, who knows? He gets kicked around the league. Who knows if he's going to stay on this team? It kind of feels like he's filler, but he could handle some, ball handling off the bench for them. And yeah, I don't hate it because, money aside, I also feel like Denver needed to clear up some playing time with a returning Jamal Murray, a returning Kevin Porter Jr., possibly more playing time for Bones Highland, who they really liked this season. So I don't necessarily think it makes the Nuggets worse, but I love it for Washington. I think this is a great trade for Washington.
Yeah. I hate it from the Nuggets perspective, honestly. I don't understand it. Look, I'm with you. It was clearly a money-saving move, and they got two worse players in return. Ish Smith is not as good as Monty Morris.
Yeah.
KCP is not as good as Will Barton. That's just my opinion. Maybe the Nuggets themselves disagree with it, but I don't think so. I think they thought, how do we get a bargain version of these two guys? And they went to the Wizards and they got them. I just don't like it. I for a team that I think should be all in on winning the championship this season right now, while you have the best version of Jokic, I just think this is a terrible move. You just do not let a player like Monty Morris walk out the door for a worse, what are we doing? Like, are we trying to win the title or not? Because Monty Morris is a really, really, really good, I think, starting caliber point guard. Like, I don't think he's, one of the 10 best or something, but I think he's in that, 15 to 20th best guards in the league area, or could be. I think he showed a lot last year. And to trade him for Ish Smith, I just think that's super disappointing. If it was just Will Barton for KCP, I would be pretty neutral on this, but the totality of the 2 for 2, I find it to be a despicable money move for a team that should be really trying to go all in.
Fair enough. All right. I'm interested to see how you feel about this next one. We got 2 more left. The Atlanta Hawks and the Spurs have a little transaction here. The Spurs get Danilo Gallinari from Atlanta, a 2023 protected first round pick coming by way of the New York Knicks, and then a first round unprotected 2025, 2026 first round swap, and then an unprotected 2027 first round pick. And the Hawks receive DeJounte Murray and Jock Landale. Where are you at with this trade? How do you feel about it?
Oh boy. Okay. When this first hit, my first thought is, holy shit, DeJounte Murray on the Hawks. That's where my mind goes first. Like, wow, that backcourt pairing could be super special. Trey, obviously a very offensive-minded guy, and DeJounte, more of a defensive-minded guy, but showed this year especially a real knack for scoring the ball. But the more I thought about it, I actually really like this for the Spurs. I know that sounds crazy, but, they've been going all in on these, like, super high upside, really, really, really young draft picks.
Yeah.
And I think DeJounte Murray doesn't quite fit into that. I think they traded him at the peak of his value. DeJounte, as good as he is a huge injury concern. The reason that the Spurs were able to get him in the draft was because of his injury concerns in college. In the NBA, he obviously tore his ACL. I just think he's a very risky player at a very high number, who he already said, we now know that his agent Rich Paul, said that he was going to decline his option and try and become an unrestricted free agent, hoping for, that big 5-year max deal coming up in a couple years. You were not going to get a deal this good, except for right now. So I think the Spurs looked around and said, we like what we're building here with guys like Primo and Vassell and this just really young core of, under 20 guys. Like, we're talking about really young players. And DeJounte, we are selling him at his max value. This is not something that the Spurs normally do. So I just think it's like actually one of those like really brave, bold moves that teams should do more often at times. So I actually really like it from the Spurs perspective, but I know that you're extremely high on DeJounte Murray, so I'm very curious to get your opinion on this one.
I love it for the Hawks. I did a whole thing during the regular season about DeJounte Murray and how he, numbers wise, was up there with Jokic, with Doncic, like he's so good. And yes, injuries, can be a concern, but I love it because obviously I think that he has, if he hits the ceiling, all NBA potential. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest issues that we've had with the Hawks the last couple of years is great. They can score. They cannot defend anybody. And DeJounte Murray is an incredible defender. And they added Mo Harkless, going back to the first trade in this segment, who is not the best shooter, but a solid wing defender. And I love that the Hawks said, we're going in on defense. We know that this has been a problem for the last couple of years. We can't ignore it anymore. And we are going to get better defensively. And I think they did an incredible job of doing that. I love the length that they are putting around Trae Young. I love that they are shoring that up. I'm a big fan of it. The Spurs, I don't hate it for the Spurs. They've already waived Gallo. He's not there. Gallo's already signed with Boston. Love that for Gallinari. And then all these picks, like, this team knows how to draft. They're good at drafting. And to have these assets, like, it's just jarring because this is not what the Spurs do. So to see it actually happen is kind of like, holy shit. Like, it's almost like shocking to see at first. But I think it's great for both teams. I don't hate this on either side.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, but I think we're opposite on who we like it for more.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, last trade here I wanted to highlight. Indiana and Boston made a deal. The Celtics receive Malcolm Brogdon. Indiana receives Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, Jawan Morgan, and a 2023 first-round pick. I'll go on the Celtics side of this because obviously, I was high on this team this last year. It's a lot to give up, and kind of like we were talking about DeJounte Murray, Malcolm Brogdon is a big injury concern. He's got his history
bigger
with
than
that.
DeJounte Murray. He's a huge injury risk.
But if you can keep him fairly healthy, and especially going into the playoffs, I love this for the Celtics personally. We saw one of the biggest issues in the finals and really throughout their playoff run this last season, ball handling. They needed somebody not named Jason Tatum that you could feel confident with the ball in their hands and not turning it over. And Malcolm Brogdon is that guy. Malcolm Brogdon is a 50, 40, 90 guy. He's a great scorer, great shooter. If they can keep him on the floor, I think that this raises their ceiling and I think it actually raises their floor. And because I think their ceiling's already pretty high. To be able to bring him in, I love it for them. The big thing is he going to stay healthy?
Yeah, I do not like this trade for the Celtics, to be honest. Look, I think Indiana got a hell of a return for a guy who does not play. That's the problem. I know you keep saying if he stays healthy. He doesn't stay healthy. The whole reason the Bucks were able to get him in the draft was he's one of the biggest red flags we've ever seen in the draft. Then he goes to the NBA. He has one healthy season. After that, this guy cannot stay on the floor. I like him as a player a lot. I hate doing this with Malcolm Brogdon because I think, as a person, he's a really great leader and a great player and the exact kind of guy you'd love to have on the Celtics team, but he's not going to play the games you need him to play.
Yeah.
It's a bet that I just feel very uncomfortable from the Celtics side doing. And they've already traded a pick for Derek White. They go ahead and trade another pick for Malcolm Brogdon. They let Aaron Nesmith walk out the door, who we don't know what Aaron Nesmith is yet. I think this guy has had a very unfair beginning to his career. Indiana gets a look at him. They also get Daniel Tice, a good player, in return. They get some looks at some other guys, a pick. I think this is a huge return for Indiana for a contract that they wanted nothing to do with, and a guy that needed to walk out the door because they need that playing time for young players now. So I just think this was a way too big of a return from, what the Celtics gave up to get him. If they gave up, basically nothing to get him, I'd love it. But for all this, I just think this is a really tough. I just don't think it's going to work out as much as we want to believe it could. I can't. I have to see it, and I haven't seen it with him.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I also don't think that Boston is going to miss the guys that went out in the trade. I don't think that it's going to be, Daniel Tice maybe is the one that they will feel, the most effect from losing. But at the same time, there are other centers that you can grab on cheap contracts that can do the same stuff. So sure. I don't think that they are, especially come postseason, I don't think that they're missing, most of these guys, aside from Tice, didn't play pretty much at all in the postseason.
Right.
Nesmith got some spot minutes here and there, but yeah, I don't think that this is a big one for them. But the injury concerns are real with Malcolm Brogdon, so we'll see if he's healthy though, especially postseason. Love it for them. Okay.
Yeah.
Last one here. We'll just kind of quick round this a little bit. So the draft has happened. The silly summer league has started, which is the Sacramento and Salt Lake City. Las Vegas Summer League is about to kick off. So you are the young guys expert here on the show. So I've got a couple questions for you. Going to the draft, were there any draft night surprises for you?
I think the biggest surprise for everybody was not that the Kings selected Keegan Murray, because I love Keegan Murray. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's going to be a really good player for a long time. It's that they weren't able to take that number 4 pick and get an asset and get Keegan Murray. Find a way to get the guy that they want and get something else in return. But look, Kings fans are rightfully excited in the, what we've seen so far from Keegan. He had one explosive, insane game and another up and down game, but plenty of flashes to be like, hey man, this guy, he's going to be an NBA player. That's for damn sure. Yeah. So I'm not bummed on it from the Kings perspective. I'm just surprised that they weren't able to do something with it. And then, for Jaden Ivey to fall to the Pistons in their lap, I just think that's absolutely incredible. I love that pairing with Cade Cunningham. I absolutely love it. I just think that's I can't believe it fell to them. That's what it blows me away. And I do understand this. The more I thought about it, it was a tough spot for the Kings, because if they just went ahead and selected Jaden Ivey, whatever. Okay, he's got the most value, let's say, on the market. Let's just select him and we'll figure it out later. I think the Pistons were happy to say, we like Keegan Murray too. Yeah. He fits into our team as well. He's not a guard, but he definitely fits into our team and he's going to be good. So they wanted to get the guy that they got. It just kind of ended up happening that way. Other than that, I think a lot of it kind of went as everyone expected. In a way, obviously Paolo going number 1 was pretty surprising. But in a way, not really. I talked about it, in the episode before. I thought Paolo kind of had the most number 1 juice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the most typical number 1 pick type guy. So it doesn't totally surprise me that he went number 1. In college basketball, he was sort of the standout, obvious, he's the biggest guy on the court. He's dominating. He played really well against Chet Holmgren. So it didn't surprise me necessarily, other than just it seemed like it was so obvious that Jabari was going to be the guy everyone was saying. And then the night before I texted you, the betting lines are going fucking nuts. And all of a sudden Paolo's the heavy favorite. So it was a weird thing there at the top. But
Yeah.
I think the Pistons, man, they got such a steal having that guy fall to them.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to be a really special pairing. And I'm really looking forward to see the two of them play together.
Yeah, it should be a ton of fun. Have you watched any of these like lesser summer leagues that are
Not
happening
really.
right now?
I mean, I'm watching clips and someone will text me and be like, oh, like last night, Kenny Lofton Jr. was punishing Chet Holmgren. So I turned that on for a minute. And then the game before, Chet was, on fire. So I had that on for a minute. But then like, dude, after like the first quarter of these games, it's unwatchable. I really cannot. It's so bad.
For sure.
The Chet thing, it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. I texted you last night about this stuff. Like, I've always loved this guy's offensive game. It's so smooth. He's got everything in his package. He's got step backs, turnarounds, like he can finish at the cup. He's got it all. But then what happens when this just bulldozer comes at him and shoves his shoulder into him? Like all that defensive upside goes out the window. You know, it's just hard to imagine him like guarding big guys and like getting blocks at the NBA level. We're asking him to score at the NBA level where, on his college team, he wasn't the best scorer. So I don't know, Chet, it's going to be a long journey for him. I think, I don't think he's ready to be some sort of number one option by any means, but maybe in a few years. You know what the biggest surprise is, honestly? I know I'm taking a lot of time here. The biggest surprise, honestly, it's that Josh Giddey was in the Salt Lake Summer League. What the fuck is that? Are you kidding me? Josh Giddey has something to prove? Like, what is this? Why?
I feel like it was less to do with like having to prove something as a player and more just let's see what you look like with Chet Holmgren on the floor. Let's see what this fit kind of looks like, what possibilities we might have here.
Well, yeah, we have an entire season of losing to do that.
Not with a Supermax player like Lou Dort on the team.
True.
And then as we are about to kick off the Vegas Summer League, is there anything you're kind of excited about for the real Summer League? Anything you're looking for? Or are you just kind of like, let's see what these guys look like? Is there a lot you take away from it?
There's not a ton. I like to see flashes, of course. And I like to see stuff like Chet last night going against a guy who like probably isn't going to get a ton of NBA minutes, but he's using his body against him. It's like little things like that I'm looking for. Like at the NBA level, what are you going to be able to do? And I'm telling you, last night, I bet every power forward and center in the league was just licking their chops saying, I cannot wait to play Oklahoma City and fucking punk this guy. Like it's just one of those things, like certain prospects come into the league and players target them. Whether that's Lonzo Ball a few years ago because of his dad, or Chet Holmgren with his odd size and his insane confidence of saying, I'm going to be the best player in the league. Guys look at that stuff and they don't like it and they want to prove a point. So it's going to be a tough season, I think, for Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that is going to be the episode today. So good to see you, Clayton.
So good to see you.
I'm glad you're back home and everything's good. We will be back in the studio soon. We will have another episode for everybody next week as we take a look at some of these summer league games. And there's still there's still free agents out there. There's still potential trades on the table. So there's going to be a lot to talk about.
DeAndre Ayton, where's he going to go? That's high on him. Yeah, it's going to be a big one. He's got to go somewhere.
So we'll see what happens. We'll be back next week. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate all your support. Remember to be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other as we leave you with this song here, the song is called Sparrow Hills by a band named Jeniferever off their 2009 Springtides LP on Denevali Records. They're a really awesome, a little bit of an older band, kind of experimental, shoegazy, post-rock, emo, indie rock kind of stuff. I just love them, and I love the fact they named themselves after a Smashing Pumpkins song, which is one of my favorite bands. So
yeah, that's funny. I love this label. I don't actually know this band, so I'm curious to check the song out.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think you're gonna love it, and I hope you all love it. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
flashing words of